Welcome back. Not that you went anywhere because it's an online class, but in the last lecture, we worked our way up to short-run labor demand for a single firm. Now we can take this a step further. And in this lecture, we're going to apply the same approach to derive the short-term labor demand for the entire industry, not just for one firm. Now, at first, it would seem like adding the demand curve of each individual firm would be enough to get the market demand curve, but that isn't quite true. In our example with one firm, they have to take the price of an output as given because each firm is too small to influence the market as a whole. And in the vast majority of cases, in the real world, this is true. But when we look at the market as a whole, for the entire industry, how much the whole industry chooses to produce does influence the price of outputs based on whatever their level of production is. So as all the firms in the industry begin to produce more, the price of that product slowly falls, which reduces the price that they receive for the product, thus the value of the marginal product from the additional worker. So now we have another wrinkle added to our model. Each firm in a perfectly competitive market faces a given market price for its output. This means that individual firms are too small to influence the price of the product they sell. So in determining how many workers to hire, firms focus on how much output an additional worker will produce and what that output is worth at the current market price, or the value of the marginal product of labor. If the wage rate falls, firms can hire more workers and as a result produce more output. This is all the stuff we talked about in the last lecture. So again, at first glance, you might think we can just add up the labor demand curves to get the industry labor demand, but that is not a complete way to approach it, because if every firm is increasing their output and increasing their hiring, that's going to have an effect on the price of the product that's being sold. So when supply increases in the market significantly, the more the product is being offered for sale, the price of the product is going to fall. So as a result, the value of the marginal product of labor for each firm is going to decrease because the output produced by each worker is now sold at a lower price. In this case, firms won't hire as many workers as we would expect if we just added up all their demand curves without thinking about this price effect on the market as a whole. Because of the lower output price, the labor demand curve for each firm shifts to the left by just a little bit. This means that at any given wage, each firm is willing to hire fewer workers than before. As a result, the total employment in the industry will be lower than it would be if we just simply sum the original demand curves for individual firms. So the true industry labor demand curve reflects this price effect. So what happens is it ends up being steeper than an individual firm's labor demand curve. This is because, again, the industry-wide increase in output reduces the price of the product, lowering the value that the workers produce. So here in our example, here we have the industry demand curves. This point D to D is what we would expect. Oops, shouldn't have clicked there. If we just summed up all of these individual firm demand curves. But because of this effect on the price, we're going to have a steeper demand curve. So it's going to be like this T to T, where as we start increasing employment from 30 to 56 to 60, all along this line, we're getting less and less money back. So the marginal value of the product of labor is decreasing, hence the steepness of that curve. So we don't want to ignore the effect of price changes. That's the important thing to note here. We can't just sum these up because of the change in prices for the industry overall. Now, let's use these figures to help illustrate what's happening. In the town of Lardo, Pennsylvania, which I've talked about before, imagine a second pizza shop opens up. So now we have two pizza shops in a competitive pizza market. Each shop, both of these, can't influence the price of pizza individually, so they take the prices given. Let's say both shops are willing to hire 15 workers at a wage of $20 and 30 workers at a wage of $10, what we see right here. If we just added up their labor demand curves, we'd expect the industry to hire 60 workers at the lower wage. What do you know? Right here at $10, 60 workers on that demand curve. But if both shops hire more workers and they produce more pizza, the total number of pizzas available in the market increases. This extra supply pushes the price of pizza down. As a result, the value of each additional worker in terms of the revenue that the pizzas that they're responsible for making or increasing the selling of decreases. So instead of hiring 30 workers each, they might hire only 28 workers each. That brings us to 56 here at that $10 wage. So they're again on this steeper demand curve.